Okay, so say you're thinking about dipping your toes into online dating. It's exciting, right? Like a whole world of possibilities opens up. But let's be real for a sec. Sometimes those profiles, well, they're not always what they seem. Expert speaker, you've seen it all when it comes to relationships. What are some things, some red flags our listeners should keep an eye out for when they're scrolling through those profiles?
Yeah, it's really all about approaching online dating with a healthy dose of, skepticism. I guess one thing that always, well, often raises a red flag is when a profile feels a little too perfect. You know what I mean?
Like it's almost too good to be true.
Exactly. Like those photos that look, professionally done, almost photoshopped, or profiles where it's all these generic cliches. It can be a sign that someone's not being totally upfront, about who they really are.
Right? It's like they're presenting this like super polished version of themselves, trying to fit into this like ideal image instead of just being themselves, flaws and all.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, some people are just, naturally more photogenic than others,
Hmm.
but you got to look for a pattern, right? If their entire profile feels more like a highlight reel than a glimpse into their actual life, it makes you wonder what they're trying to hide.
That's a really good point. Like, are they afraid to show a little vulnerability? Yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe they have these really unrealistic expectations of what they think a relationship should look like.
Yeah. And it makes you think about the whole thing with authenticity online, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to connect with someone based on who they really are.
100%. And, that's where those vague profiles come into play, right? The ones that could basically describe anyone.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah, I love long walks on the beach, laughing with friends.
Right. Like everyone loves that. Tell me something that makes you you.
Exactly. Give me something interesting, some specific detail that makes you you. Because I think those little quirks, those unique details, that's what actually sparks a connection.
Makes sense.
And when a profile is super vague,
Hmm.
it might be a sign that someone's, maybe a little afraid to be vulnerable. Or maybe they haven't really taken the time to think about what makes them tick. Either way, it makes it pretty hard to know if you would actually vibe in real life.
Totally. It's like, how do you even start a conversation with that? You need something to connect with, right?
Yeah.
Some shared interests, some common ground. So we've talked about profiles that feel like too good to be true. And then there are the ones that are like frustratingly vague.
Oh.
What about the ones that kind of take a negative turn? I'm talking about profiles that are just full of negativity, like bashing their ex, complaining about their life. Is that like always a bad sign, a deal breaker?
It's definitely something to pay attention to. I get it. Everyone goes through tough times. And it's natural to want to vent sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But a dating profile, it shouldn't feel like a therapy session.
Yeah, there's a time and a place, right? Like maybe not when you're trying to put your best foot forward and attract a partner.
Right, exactly. And it kind of makes you wonder about their self-awareness.
Like, are they really looking for a partner or just someone to listen to them complain?
Yeah, I mean, are they looking for someone to share their life with, or are they looking for someone to validate all that negativity? And it's also worth paying attention to, like, the tone of it all.
Oh, interesting.
Are they expressing, like, their experiences in a constructive way? Or is it just all blame and bitterness?
That's a good point. There's a difference between saying, hey, I'm recently single and, figuring things out versus my ex was a nightmare and everyone always disappoints me.
Exactly. One shows, like, a willingness to learn and grow from
All
experience,
right.
while the other kind of suggests this pattern of negativity that might be tougher to break.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's more about like looking for those patterns and considering the overall tone, not just like writing someone off for a single complaint.
Right. And you know what? Trust your gut on that. If something feels off, it probably is. Your gut is giving you valuable information.
I love that. Trust your gut. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But first, I want to unpack another type of profile that can be a red flag. And these are the ones that are all about superficiality. And I'm talking about those profiles where it's all about like physical attributes,
Yeah.
like six-pack selfies, descriptions that sound like they're looking for a supermodel. So what's going on there? What's the psychology behind that like fixation on looks? And how can our listener tell the difference between someone who's just like confident versus someone who's maybe just a little shallow?
Yeah, you've hit on something really important there. It's natural to, like, be attracted to someone physically,
Yeah.
right? But when a profile is just like laser focused on looks and nothing else, it could be a sign that they're not really seeing beyond the
I
surface.
feel like they're saying swipe right for a trophy date, not swipe right if you want to connect.
Exactly. And look, a healthy dose of confidence, that's fantastic.
Right.
But when it crosses that line into like superficiality, that's definitely something to watch out for.
So how can our listener tell the difference? How do you know if someone is just confident versus, like you said, shallow?
I'd say look for balance. Do they talk about anything else in their profile? Hobbies, interests, values, anything like that? Are they showing different sides of their personality, or is it just like super polished photos and a laundry list of what they're looking for physically?
That makes sense. You want to get a sense of the whole person. And speaking of red flags, one of the things that came up in the research was how some people can be like really eager to meet up right away. Is that always a bad sign?
I think it depends, It's all about context.
Hmm.
Some people are just like naturally more comfortable meeting sooner rather than later. And others, they really want to take their time to get to know someone online first.
Yeah.
I think it becomes a red flag if someone's not respecting your boundaries around that.
So it's not necessarily a deal breaker if someone's excited to meet, but it's more about how they react when you say, hey, I'm not quite ready for that yet.
100%. Someone who is respectful, they'll totally understand that. They'll be willing to take things at a pace that you're comfortable with. Because ultimately, they're prioritizing getting to know you,
Right.
not just getting a date.
Right. Okay, so for someone who's listening who might be thinking about, maybe going on that first date with someone they met online, what are some good ways to navigate that, to stay safe?
Well, I always say start with, online communication. Spend some time getting to know them through messaging, maybe even a video call or two before you even think about meeting in person. And pay attention to how they communicate too. Are they asking you questions? Are they actually interested in getting to know you? Or are they just trying to like lock down a date without putting in any effort?
I'm really glad you mentioned video calls because that's a great way to get a better feel for someone's energy and see if there's, a vibe without having to meet up right away. And speaking of feeling it out, this next point is so important. One of the sources really emphasized the importance of trusting your gut when it comes to online dating. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's like, you have this built-in radar system, and it's especially important online because it's easy to like get caught up in the excitement of a potential match. But those gut feelings, they're your internal warning system. So if something feels off, pay attention to that. Don't ignore it.
Yeah, it can be such a subtle thing, right? It's not always something obvious. It's more like this quiet little voice saying, something's not right here.
Right, exactly. Maybe their stories don't quite add up, or they get really defensive if you ask them a simple question. Or maybe they keep pushing your boundaries, even after you said you're not comfortable with something. Whatever it is, trust your gut. It's usually right.
So for our listener who's maybe thinking, okay, how do I actually learn to trust those gut feelings, especially in the online world where it's so easy to like second guess yourself?
Yeah, it just takes practice, honestly. Yeah, but, it's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So just start paying attention to how you feel when you're talking to someone online. Do you feel like energized by the conversation? Or you feel kind of drained, maybe a little anxious?
You're like, does it feel effortless and fun? Or are you putting in all the work?
Right, exactly. And, maybe you notice that their communication style's a little all over the place, or they're always trying to get you to share personal stuff when you're not really ready.
Those are good things to watch out for.
And it's always okay to, like, take your time getting to know someone. Don't feel like you have to, like, message them back immediately or tell them your life story on the first date, You're in control of the pace, the level of interaction, all of it.
That's such a good reminder. It's not about being like suspicious of everyone, but it's definitely smart to be aware and, like you said, to stay in control of the situation.
Exactly. And remember, seeing a red flag, it's not about like writing someone off completely based on just one thing. It's more about just being aware of, potential areas where you might not be compatible. You're just being honest with yourself about what you're looking for, right?
So we've talked about a lot of those red flags, like those super curated photos, vague descriptions, negativity, putting too much emphasis on looks, pressuring you to meet up before you're ready. But let's talk about the good stuff. What are some things that might actually be a good sign, those green flags, that maybe this is someone worth getting to know better?
Well, I think one of the biggest green flags you can see online is, authenticity. Does their profile feel genuine? Do they share details that feel like personal and specific, even if they're a little different?
I love that. Quirks and all right.
Yes. Own it, because someone's going to love that about you. Another green flag is, when someone is a clear and respectful communicator. Do they respond to your messages in a way that makes you feel heard? Are they asking questions? Do they actually seem interested in what you have to say?
So it's about finding someone who actually values communication and who's willing to put in the effort, not just like going through the motions.
Totally. And speaking of effort, pay attention to how they talk about things that are important to them, their values, their passions. Do they like line up with yours at all? Are they looking for the same things you are? Shared values, I think, those are so essential for a strong, lasting relationship.
Like they say, you can't build a solid house on a shaky foundation.
Love that. And finally, just like you pay attention to those red flags, those gut feelings when something feels off, don't ignore those positive gut feelings either. What happens when you read their message? Do you, like, smile? Do you feel a little spark of excitement when you see their name pop up?
Yeah, sometimes you can't explain it, you just feel it.
Exactly. Don't ignore that. Trust those good instincts just as much as you trust those red flags.
This has been so insightful. As we wrap up, is there like one big takeaway you want our listener to remember when it comes to online dating?
At the end of the day, you are in control. You get to decide what you're looking for, what you're comfortable with, what feels good to you. So trust your gut, listen to your intuition, and never be afraid to walk away from anything that isn't giving you what you need.
Such great advice. It's about knowing your worth and not settling for anything less than what you deserve. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And listener, we hope this deep dive gives you the tools you need to navigate the world of online dating with confidence and to find that authentic connection you're looking for.